Good morning and welcome to this info session on how to become an expert in Horizon Europe. My name is Isabel Vergara and I am the Deputy Head of Unit in the European Commission's General Directorate of Research and Innovation, working in the unit responsible for business processes in Horizon Europe. Today's event is the first time in a long time that we organize an info session on experts. So these experts are external to the Commission and are those people with an expertise that we need in order to assist us with the evaluation of proposals and with the monitoring of projects. Although we also contract experts for other business, these are the major type of contracts that we organize. So in this event, we will go through all the practical tips that you need to follow to become an expert. So we publish a call for expression of interest. You need to reply to this call for expression of interest, and you do this through the portal, the Fundings and Tender portal. We will also give you some tips and answer all the questions that you have when you are contacted and then about to make a contract with us. And we will also show you the practical views of a call coordinator. Call coordinators in the Commission are those responsible for the evaluation of proposals. And we will also have the opportunity to give you the experience of an expert that have assisted recently with one evaluation. So this will be the first block of the presentations. After this first block, we will open the session for questions and answers. And you can post your questions via Slido. I will give you more details in a moment. But I also want to mention that after this block of question and answers, we will have an additional presentation about how to enter into the portal with your account. So you will have to create an ECAS account. And then so far, this ECAS account is accessible through a password, login and password, but this we realized that is not sufficient in terms of cybersecurity. So we are little by little introducing the two-factor authentication to access the portal. And for this, we will have a presentation at the end of this session by my head of unit, Peter Harwith. Yeah. So in terms of the organization, as I mentioned, you can post your question via Slido. I hope you can see the QR code in order to access the Slido session in the screen. So please, as always, before posting any question, check if a similar question has been already posted, and do not create a second question on the same thematic. But just vote this question, because at the time we open the session to answer those questions, we will reply in the order of the most voted one. So with this, I think I finished this introduction, and I will hand over now to my colleague Alberto Fraile Ramos, who will give you some practical details about how to register in our database and information on how to become an expert. So please, Alberto, thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, for the introductions, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for your interest in discovering how to become an expert for Horizon Europe. As Isabel said, I work with her at the Common Service for Business Process at the Directorate General of Research and Innovation. And I would like to begin by discussing the types of experts that we need at the European Commission. There are three types of tasks that experts can carry out, and therefore three main types of experts. Evaluators, who assist in various stages of the evaluations of proposals. Monitors, who assist in the follow-up of the implementation of EU funding projects and contracts. And other types of experts who assist with more in-depth expertise in specific areas. For example, policy experts that assist the European Commissions with the implementation, evaluation, or designing of EU funding programs. Let's look now into the call for expression of interest. Experts respond to a call for expression of interest for experts. This call for expression of interest is announced in the Work as an Expert page in the Funding and Tender portal. This call for expression of interest is for the current multi-annual financial framework and applies to all programs using the Funding and Tender portal. You can be selected and registered in the expert database to work for any EU funding program that use the portal, such as Horizon Europe. You can register at any time in the expert database via the portal. Though you don't need to upload documents to register, there are minimum requirements for setting up an expert profile as shown in the slide. It's essential to list all relevant keywords that describes your expertise, as the main selection criterion is a high level of experience and knowledge. Please register any expertise that you have. When we need experts for the evaluation of proposals, the monitoring of projects, or for providing advice, we select from the database the expertise that we need. We will contact you to know if you will be available to participate in the evaluation of proposals, the monitoring of projects, or for providing advice. For those selected experts, we will make contracts and you will conduct most of your work remotely. Let's move to the expert selection process and the rotation rules. What are our criteria from selecting experts? They depend on the tasks. All experts are chosen based on a high level of skills, experience, and knowledge appropriate for assigned tasks. For evaluators, the skill, experience, and knowledge in the areas of the call. And we select all our experts based in the absence of any conflict of interest. If these conditions are met, we aim for a balanced composition considering experience, geographical diversity, and gender. For Horizon Europe, the goal is 50% gender parity in evaluations committees. And also, when appropriate, a balance between the experts coming from the private and the public sectors. We ensure the rotation of experts to incentivize the participations of new experts to enhance the knowledge of the programs, to encourage experts' participation from all member states, especially from widening countries. Also to prevent closed clubs in evaluations, and to apply equal treatment to all experts that responded to the call for expression of interest. And how do we ensure rotation? Two reimbursement thresholds exist. First, an expert cannot be paid more than 90,000 euros during 4 consecutive calendar years, but any commission service or agency for any funding program. And here we exclude allowances and travel costs. Second, individual contracts must be under 140,000 euros, which is the procurement threshold. Another approach to ensure rotation is including at least 25% of newcomer experts. These are experts who, for a particular call in Horizon Europe, has not been contracted for Horizon Europe in the previous 3 years. For example, an expert who participated in the evaluation of proposals 4 years ago but has not worked for Horizon Europe in the last 3 years is considered a newcomer. And we strive to include brand new experts. Experts who have never been contracted for the research and innovation framework programs, meaning that have been not contracted for Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, FP7 and FP6. For example, an expert that is going to be contracted for Horizon Europe that was contracted for the EU for Health program last year but has never been contracted for Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, FP7 or FP6 is considered a brand newcomer. Now, let's see the evaluation process and what is the work that you will carry out as an evaluator. Proposals are evaluated on the basis of award or evaluation criteria. We have 3 evaluation criteria: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. For the ERC calls, we only have 1 evaluation criterion, that is excellence. Changes to this standard evaluation criteria must be clearly stated in the topic description. The standard evaluation process comprises 4 phases, but in certain calls we may deviate from this standard. The first phase is the individual evaluation. Experts assess proposals individually, unaware of the identity of the other experts evaluating the same proposal. Each proposal should have a minimum of 3 evaluations, but we often use more than 3 experts per proposal. The second phase is the consensus group phase. Here, experts who assess a proposal discuss and agree on a common position. When the consensus phase for all proposals submitted to a call is finished, we put together all experts evaluating proposals in that call and ask them to reach an agreement on comments and score. This is the panel review phase. During this phase, we also resolve issues where consensus was not met previously. And the panel review also rank proposals that receive the same score. And the last phase is the finalization. European Commission or the executive agencies conclude with final ranking of proposals, respecting always the ranking of the experts. The individual evaluation is remote, and we remunerate depending on the type and complexity of the proposals. It normally takes from 2 to 3 weeks, and the consensus group and panel review phases can be remote or in Brussels, lasting about 1 week, but we will require your full availability for this period. And here we pay 450 euros per full day worked. Let's dive deeper into the evaluation process and the work that you will do during the different phases. During the individual evaluations, evaluators will complete an individual evaluation report. For this, the experts evaluators read and evaluate each proposal as submitted against the evaluation criteria. If they identify shortcomings, they give a lower score to the relevant criterion. They provide comments and scores for all the evaluation criteria, ensuring alignment between the comments and the scores. They should explain shortcomings, but they do not make recommendations. What happens during the consensus group phase? The consensus involves a discussion based on the individual evaluations. The objective is to find an agreement on comments and scores. During the consensus meetings, we ask evaluators to explore carefully outlining opinions. They might be as valid as other opinions. Evaluators should have an open mind. During the consensus, individual views might change. This consensus group phase is moderated by EU staff or, in some cases, by an expert who must remain neutral and manage the evaluation, keeping confidentiality, objectivity, the accuracy, and the fairness of the process. The moderators ensures that all voices are heard and all points are discussed. We normally appoint a rapporteur in the consensus phase. They are responsible for drafting the consensus reports, including comments and scores. Let's talk now about the panel review. The panel review typically includes all experts from the consensus groups with the possibility to add new experts. The panel review makes sure that the comments and scores given at the consensus phase are consistent for all proposals within the call, resolves disagreements from the consensus phase. The panel review endorses the comments and scores for each proposals and recommends a list of proposals in priority order and ranks equally scores proposals. On some occasions, like in certain calls of the European Innovation Council and the European Research Councils, the panel review participate in hearings and interviews when the applicants are invited to present their proposals. Let's briefly explore the role of the experts monitors. Monitors are crucial for overseeing projects' implementation and may handle project reviews and progress meetings. They prepare midterm and final reports, and they supervise long-term initiatives as business innovations. In particular, the project reviewers target several main areas. They monitor the delivery of project outputs, review the ongoing relevance of project goals, assess how resources are allocated and used, ensure compliance with principles of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. The project reviews examine the management processes and techniques applied during the project, also evaluate the beneficiaries' involvement and input within the project, assess the potential impact of the project, and examine strategies for the utilization of results and dissemination of the results. Let's move on to discuss other types of experts. Different specialized experts, such as those in ethics, gender, finance, and policy, bring a more focused expertise. For example, policy experts support in expert group, helping the Commission in implementing, evaluating, or designing EU funding programs. These policy experts analyze the current context, reasons, and objectives, and they propose improvements for the implementation of existing or new programs. Let's finish with further details. Additional information is accessible in the Work as an Expert page in the Funding and Tender portal. There you will find the call for expression of interest for experts. Also, you will find an IT how-to guide to help you with the registration process. We provide briefing slides for evaluating Horizon Europe proposals and short videos covering relevant policy considerations. Thank you for your attention, and if you haven't registered yet, we recommend you to do so. And I pass the floor to Isabel.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Yes, so I think very interesting information. I saw already many questions in Slido, and I hope we will be able to reply to those questions with all the presentations this morning. But nevertheless, we will have the questions and answer session. So I would like to highlight that indeed the two main roles for the experts that we contract are to assist us with evaluations of calls for proposals and also to monitor projects. But with difference, the bulk of the contracts goes for evaluators, and this is what Alberto has presented, all the steps in our evaluation process, and showing what are the tasks that the experts would do if contracted. One important issue is how we select the experts, and I have seen several questions now in Slido, and for this, I hope our call coordinator, Theodoros Staikos, will give us more information. Theodoros is call coordinator in Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, and he is a very experienced call coordinator, and yeah, you as a call coordinator are responsible to select the experts from our database, so we will give you some information on how we do this. So please, Theodoros, thank you.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Good morning, everyone. My name is Theodoros Staikos. I'm a co-coordinator at the Research Executive Agency, the executive arm of the European Commission that, among other things, also managing the evaluation process. Today, I will be offering an insider's perspective on how experts are selected and how proposals are allocated to those experts, drawing from my experience in different calls and more specifically Marie Sklodowska-Curie postdoctoral fellowships. I will also highlight the different approach used depending on the nature of each call and its specificities. As call coordinators, we work behind the scenes in order to make sure that each proposal is assigned to the right people. We don't just select experts, we actually shape the composition and the quality of the entire evaluation panel. And due to this reason, it's quite important to understand that the task of expert selection and allocation of proposals to experts, it's both a critical and a strategic task of the overall evaluation process. To understand how this is done, let's start with a kind of reminder, follow up on what Alberto already presented earlier, just to highlight what are the basic 5 fundamental criteria that we use to select experts for evaluation, and this applies to all calls. Of course, the first one is the higher level of skills and domain, scientific expertise. It is actually non-negotiable that the experts should have scientific expertise, should be experts in their field. That's why they are chosen to do the evaluation. So this is a fundamental and critical criterion that we always apply in selection of experts. Absence of interest, conflict of interest, is also very important in order to ensure the credibility of the overall evaluation process. And then we have a number of additional constraints that we always try to meet, already presented by Alberto briefly. Gender balance, it's quite important to have a 50-50 distribution between male and female. Geographical diversity, sector diversity between academic and private sector is also needs to be respected, especially in some calls for proposals. Also, we try to cover disciplines such as social science and humanities, ethics, innovation, and gender expertise, if applicable. Last but not least, it's quite important to ensure that the pool of experts it's always renewed. So we have new people coming and joining the evaluation, so we don't rely on the same people year after year. So that's why we have this 25% of newcomers that every call for proposals needs to respect. Newcomers already explained that it's people, experts that have not been used as evaluators during the last 3 years. And there is a requirement as well, not a strict requirement, depends on each call, on the use of brand new experts that have never worked with us before, so they don't have any experience. This requirement depends on the call. I would say the average is around 10% for brand new experts across all the calls. Of course, this is variable. Let's see now, continuing again on what Alberto explained, let's focus now on the different types of experts used in the evaluations. Of course, the fundamental type is the expert evaluator, which performs independently the evaluation proposals, minimum 3, maximum, it can be 5, it can be even larger per proposal. Rapporteur is also a role that one of the expert evaluators is assigned and is responsible for drafting the consensus report, but not only drafting, but also monitoring the process during the consensus phase with the help, of course, of EU experts or additional evaluators, and in order to reach consensus not only on the comments, but also on the score during the consensus phase. Another type of experts used in some evaluation, not all, are the panel chairs and the vice chairs. These are experienced expert evaluators that they have been used for many years. They understand the process very well. They have in-depth knowledge of the whole evaluation process and can assist EU staff in various functions. You will see later in my presentation, some of these, for example, it could be support during the allocation of proposals to experts, or support during the monitoring phase in consensus phase, as well as other functions. Then we have, of course, the ethics experts. These are experts that are not involved in the evaluation. They only come after the end of the evaluation, and they perform the ethics screening for proposals on the main and reserve list. And finally, we have the independent observer, which is a critical role in all of the evaluations. This is an independent expert chosen to monitor the entire evaluation process and provide feedback. This is a crucial role because it has an access to all the steps of the evaluation. This person is usually a very experienced expert, I would say experienced chair and vice chair, that is promoted to this role of independent observer. And at the end of his or her intervention, he provides a report that it's the basis for the feedback for the evaluation to improve the process for the next year. The summary, the executive summary of the independent observer report is available in the funding and tender portals for all call for proposals. So you can have access to this summary of the independent observer's report. Let me now walk you through the whole process that leads to the evaluation. Evaluation, explained earlier, by Alberto. Now I will focus on the steps just before the evaluation, from call publication until the start of the evaluation. Call publication, of course, it's the starting point of the whole process. It's the time where the call, each of the call proposals is defined, the nature of the call proposal is defined, and all specificities are clarified. The second step, and before the call deadline, we have to identify the experts, to draw the pool of experts. And this is the selection of experts phase. Experts are chosen based, of course, as we said, on expertise, gender balance, geographical diversity, and of course, absence of conflict of interest. As soon as the call closes, the call deadline, then all the proposals are submitted proposals are collected and processed. And then we move quickly. This period it has to be done quite fast. We move to the allocation of proposals to experts when we match the keywords, but also other information from the proposals with information that we have from the experts in the experts database, and we try to allocate the right proposal to the right experts. As soon as this is done, then we are ready to start the evaluation process. Let's see a bit more details about how this expert selection and allocation is done. The first thing to acknowledge is that there's no one-size-fits-all practice. There are different procedures, different approaches used depending on the characteristics of each call. Selection and allocation strategies are carefully adapted based on two main factors. The first factor is the nature of the call. If it's a bottom-up, if it's an open call, open to all these scientific disciplines, or if it's a top-down call, as we call it, which is a very narrow, specific domain. Of course, this is defined in the call publication. The second factor is the number of proposals submitted, because this is also plays a role in the selection of experts and the allocation strategy to be chosen. It's quite different to manage calls with thousands of proposals, or if you have calls with some few number of proposals. So this plays a role as well. Of course, we ensure that the evaluations are always fair, balanced, and supported by the right expertise. Let's dig now into more on the difference between the bottom-up calls and the top-down calls. You can see here in this slide the differences between the two types of call. Bottom-up calls are quite broad, open topics in any scientific discipline. Examples are, of course, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action programs, EIC, and other calls as well. The pool of experts used for the bottom-up calls is quite diverse, I would say. It has to be interdisciplinary, and it has to be updated regularly. Of course, the starting point for selecting experts is based on populating pools, is based on previous years, because usually these calls are yearly or very often used calls. And so we base the selection of experts on previous pools, and we always update the number of experts with the criteria that I mentioned earlier. And how we do that? We use keyword analysis. We try to identify the gaps in the expertise, as well as we receive feedback from the experienced experts that used in some of those calls. On the other hand, in top-down calls, specific topics predefined, very narrow scientific domains in some cases. Such examples are, of course, the cluster calls in Pillar 2. Then the pool of experts is quite focused. It's very topic specific. We are looking for a precise matching between the proposal and the expert. So it's more like a custom pool per topic. And it starts from scratch usually. There's no previous pool for these particular calls. And the search strategy is, of course, based on the specificities of the call as defined in the call text. Includes as well input and feedback from DGs on defined keywords. Let's see now the second factor that also affects the strategy to be used for the selection of experts and allocation. In this case, we adapt, especially the allocation, we adapt different practices if the call receives thousands of proposals or if it receives a few proposals. For high volume calls, of course, as you can imagine, the pool of experts to be used, it has to be quite large, quite scalable pool. The allocation in most of the cases is done supported by IT tools. So we do a pre-allocation based on IT tools, but then of course there's a manual validation done by EU staff, chairs and vice chairs in some cases, to confirm the pre-allocations. On the other hand, low volume calls, we're talking about limited number of proposals, small curated pools. The allocation process in that case for low volume calls is quite manual, is fine-tuned, the matching between proposals and experts. And the challenge is, if I have to say, in high volume calls, of course, the challenge is to keep the consistency, to keep the coverage and the rotation for these large pools, while on the other hand, in low volume calls, is to ensure the in-depth expertise and knowledge of the experts selected. Let's see now how we found experts, where do we search for experts. The primary source is, of course, the experts database. From our side, from call coordinators, we have the back office of the expert database that you register yourself as experts. We call it ECS. This is the internal expert management IT tool that we go there and we search by keyword, by professional experience, by qualification, by gender, by country, by whatever. There's a range of filters that we can apply and search for experts. In some cases where, and especially in small narrow topics where their specific profiles are missing, then there's always the opportunity to search for experts outside ECS in other databases, identify those people, and then of course invite them to get registered in the experts database in order to be used and to be contracted for our services. I have to say that this is a limited practice, only for some small number of cases. Usually we rely on the experts database. There is a need for a quality control evaluation of the profiles that we found in the experts database, because these are, of course, self-declared by you, by the experts. So we need to apply some external checks in order to ensure that we select the right people. We check the publication history. We go in external databases like Scopus, ResearchGate, or ORCID, and we try to confirm, to validate what is declared by the experts and what is mentioned there. Also, we check the employment confirmation and, if relevant, soft type of skills and prior evaluation experience. In case that we find inaccuracies or misleading information, then usually we don't proceed with contracting experts that we are not 100% sure about the claims that they put in the experts database. So we covered quite a few points. Let me summarize quickly the main points, the main takeaways of this presentation. Of course, selection of experts is based on merit, transparency, and balance. I have shown earlier that the process of selecting experts and allocating proposals really vary by call type and by the number of proposals submitted. We ensure that the expert allocation is always fit for purpose for the particular call, and we ensure that rotation and quality check is taken seriously during the creation, the selection of experts, and the allocation. Of course, the process is not perfect. We try to select the right experts, but every year we try to improve. We receive feedback from various sources, from the independent observer, from chairs and vice chairs, from experts themselves, as well as from other sources, from DGs, from policy monitoring, and we try every year to improve and validate our selection process and allocation of proposals to experts. Thank you very much, and I'll pass the floor to Isabel.
Also, so at any moment of the life of a funding program in research, so there are always many calls open. So and you can check those calls that are open in the portal to see what is the expertise that we will need to evaluate the proposals that we receive. Yes, so thank you again, Theodoros. Now I will pass the floor to our invited speaker. So he is a professor in the University Carlos III of Madrid, and he has assisted us as evaluator in several evaluations. So I hope Professor José Niño Mora is with us. And yes, so please, José, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Good morning, everyone. Yes, as Isabel mentioned, I have been invited to share with you the insights I have gained from experience over several years as an independent expert for Horizon Europe and previous framework programs. So I have prepared a presentation that is accordingly somewhat less formal and more personal than the previous presentations. There will be some redundant information, but from a personal experience point of view. Can you see this? Can you see the presentation, Isabel?
Yes, we can, José.
Okay. So this is my experience as an expert. Just as a point of reference, I got my PhD in 1995. I am currently a professor in Madrid, as Isabel said. In 2002, I registered in the experts pool, and it took a while to get drawn from the pool. Actually, I had forgotten that I had registered until I was finally called in 2009 when I got my first assignment as an external expert. But ever since, I have been called and I have fulfilled various roles, including expert evaluator, monitor. This role was mentioned before. I have also served as independent observer, as vice chair, and in the last 2 years, I have also been chair. What's this enterprise all about? This is the point of view of an expert. As you know, the European Union launches many R&I calls. There are many applicants who compete for the resulting funding opportunities or projects, and the issue arises of how to select the best projects, of course, based according to evaluation criteria. And they have designed a multi-layer evaluation system where we, independent external experts, play a key role. So from the point of view of an external expert, the system is pretty well designed. My view is that it is based on the principle that nobody is perfect. Even if we try very hard, we overlook things, we make mistakes. And these multiple layers ensure that such mistakes, such human inevitable mistakes are minimized. The first layer, as was mentioned before, is the allocation of proposals to evaluators with suitable expertise. In the second layer, there are independent assessments of each proposal held by chairs, more experienced experts who do not evaluate. There is a third layer where these independent assessments are confronted, and these experts try to reach consensus and produce a consensus report prepared by a rapporteur. This is not the end. There is another fourth layer where there are further quality checks by vice chairs, where an ECR is produced, which is a more closer to final report. But still, this is not the end of the story. There are further layers, cross-reading of such ESRs, and the final checks is performed by EC staff. So as you see, many layers to produce fair and mistake-free reports. What can an expert expect in the proposal allocation stage? Well, new experts are typically in the role of expert evaluators. Sometimes experts may get proposals not within the specific specialty area, but it is, of course, impossible to find specialty experts for each and every proposal. So we are usually asked that if the assigned proposal falls within our broader expertise, we should accept it. A key issue that is paid a lot of attention is conflict of interest. This is taken very seriously, as it should. Evaluation criteria were mentioned before. It is important that these reports have to be complete by a deadline. There are several criteria to assess. Excellence, impact, and implementation were mentioned before. They have within each specific sub-criteria. And it is very important for us evaluators to assess only the official sub-criteria. Sometimes a new expert thinks, well, this aspect or that aspect is important, but if such aspects are not contemplated among the official sub-criteria, evaluations cannot be based on them. And all of the sub-criteria need to be assessed. Otherwise, vice chairs are there to help fix such issues. About the structure of the IERs, well, each program has its own rules on how reports should be structured. For example, in some programs, there are bullet points of strengths and weaknesses, whereas in others, the required structure is completely different. It is based on free-form paragraphs assessing sub-criteria, but no bullet points. So for experts, evaluators, it is important just to learn what is the required structure and respect it. The quality of comments in these reports is very important, so we are expected to produce high-quality comments, and for that we need a good understanding of the sub-criteria and also of the proposal that we are evaluating. For example, poor quality comments are, a poor quality comment will be the proposed methodology is not convincing, period. Well, that is not good because it doesn't explain why. Each assessment must be properly substantiated. For example, the proposed methodology is not convincing because of these specific reasons that substantiate such an assessment. This is very important. Again, vice chairs are there to help evaluators, especially the new ones, to properly substantiate each and every assessment. Consensus meetings and reports were mentioned before, where evaluators meet and discuss proposals to reach consensus. There are also deadlines, very important. There is the role of the rapporteur, who drafts the consensus report. And something that is bad for consensus is an attitude of sticking to your guns. I am sure that this is the right way to view this proposal, and I will not get convinced out of it. This is not good for consensus. Instead, we are expected to go to consensus meetings with an open mind. We may, of course, argue our views and try to persuade fellow evaluators, but we must also listen to others' arguments. We have to be flexible and willing to compromise because we must reach consensus by a deadline. Again, vice chairs are there to smooth out and unstuck discussions that may have turned difficult to complete. What are some qualities, based on my experience, for being a Horizon Europe expert and keep being one? Well, first of all, of course, rock solid integrity. For example, as I said before, conflicts of interest are taken very seriously, as they should. So this is, of course, something that goes without saying. Also, we have to work with other people, with fellow experts, easy staff. So it is very important to be a fully reliable and valuable team player. Very important, as I mentioned before several times, it is to respect deadlines. If some deadline is not respected, this affects other people's work, the entire process, so it can be extremely disrupted, and it is valued very much that experts adhere strictly to official deadlines for different kinds of reports. Also, well, our working language is English, so communicating, especially written English. So especially we, such as myself, who are not non-native English speakers, well, we must keep improving our English drafting skills. English, as you know, is a very rich language, and there is always room for improvement for non-native speakers, for saying things more precisely, more concisely, more clearly. Also, a quality that is very important, I have found, is to have a very strong detail orientation, because, well, we have to spot contradictions. For example, in different parts of a report, you may say some aspect is good. In some other part of the report, you may say some different aspect is not good, but maybe those two aspects are related in some way. So one has to have a detail-oriented mindset to spot such contradictions which should not be there. And we have to be flexible and constructive, especially in consensus discussions. To reach consensus, this is a requirement. Finally, is it worth it to be an expert? Well, let me start by saying that we should not minimize what it involves. It is no piece of cake. It requires serious commitment and hard work. And you need to juggle it with your day job. This is something to be taken into account. And this may be challenging, and each of us needs to weigh that. But if you decide to go for it and to try it, there are many pluses, many advantages, starting with the ultimate goal. It is that we are contributing to a worthy goal, selecting the best projects, research and innovation projects is a very important goal. We put our 2 cents value towards this goal. Also, well, I have found that being an expert is an opportunity to develop many valuable skills. Drafting, clear quality of expression, quick understanding of complex proposals, and so on. So over the years, you develop teamwork, you develop many valuable skills. It is a very valuable opportunity for this. And also, well, you get a chance to work with many accomplished international colleagues. With time, you develop even good working relationships. Some people even become friends. So this is very, very valuable. And to sum it up, for many of us, including myself, well, the end balance is that it is a truly rewarding experience, well worth it. So I recommend that you try it out. Thank you for your attention, and that's all on my part.
So thank you very much, Jose. It was very interesting, I think, to have your external opinion. And I also very glad that you mentioned that this is a resource-intense work. So when we contract experts, so we really expect that they are committed to do the job, and is something that requires intensity and dedication here. One comment before going to our last presentation of this first block is that I saw in Slido that there are many questions asking, I have registered since long but never contacted and never contracted. So we will reply this question in one go at the time of the questions and answer session. But just to give you a first reply, so today we have about 250,000 experts registered in our database. And for you to give an idea, I think we have about 25,000 contracts per year. So so it might be normal that not all experts in the database are contracted, but we will try to reply it and give you more hints and advice in the questions and answer sessions. So now we go to the last presentation of this first block. And just to introduce this presentation, I would like to mention that we have the view of our call coordinator. Call coordinators are, as I mentioned, are responsible to select the experts and to allocate these experts to evaluate the specific proposals. But then at the time these experts are selected, we need to generate a contract. So experts signed a contract with us. And for this, we have a special unit that consolidate all these contracting issues in the Research Executive Agency in REA. And here we have Emanuela Ciavarini Axi with us, who is working in this unit, and she will give us more information about how is the process of the contracting of the experts. So thank you, Emanuela. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you, Isabel. So, as she said, my name is Emanuela Ciavarini Axi, and I work in a service that deals with the management of experts, and we try to support the experts as much as we can over the whole process, the whole administrative process that goes behind the evaluations. So let's start here. So working for the Research Executive Agency, we carry out several activities. These activities are basically the call planning, which is at the root of everything, as mentioned already by my colleagues. But we try also to concentrate a lot on our role of service providers, customer support, and we manage experts, as I said, by validating the legal entities and bank accounts, by contracting them afterwards and paying them. And then when they are on site, I will go into details later. If experts are asked to come on site in Brussels, we also assist them with briefings and an help desk. We also are responsible for the logistics, so for the management of the evaluation facilities, make sure that there are enough rooms for all experts and all types of experts, of course, and the call secretariat and all these things. And we also provide then the daily organization of the call with water, coffees, and this sort of thing. So we have very clear values. So we are, as I said, very customer oriented. So we help experts as much as we can. We try to be as efficient as we can, and so deliver things on time, especially concerning payments. And we really try to listen to the experts when they have their questions and when they need help for anything. We work for a series of clients. First of all, experts, that's our main clients, but of course all the agencies, DGs and other bodies we collaborate with. So the support we give to experts goes through the whole process, as I said before. We provide input to the frequent asked questions that are available already on the portal. And we also manage a mailbox which is accessible to all contracted experts. So, as you can see, the beginning of everything is the call planning. Then we collaborate with the operational units, the call coordinators, when they select the experts. Once the experts are selected and ready for contracting, we first need to check that their legal entities and their bank accounts are validated. So experts who have never worked with us are asked to fill in the legal entity and the bank account details. We manage also double profiles if experts have registered at some point in their career and then created a second profile because they forgot they had one. It's important to keep one single profile, so we make sure that this is one of them only is activated. And then, yes, we manage also staff ex-staff issues because we have different contracts according to the status of the experts. Afterwards, we have the contracting phase. So the contract actually, I will point out that it's not a traditional employment contract, it's just a contract of services. And it contains all your rights and obligations. So it's very important to read the contract. Now we have a model contract which is shorter, it's easier to read. It's, you can read it on the portal as well. And it contains the description of the tasks that need to be carried out by the expert. The task can be fully remote or remote and on-site, and this needs to be read carefully as well. And there is, of course, a calendar of the work to be provided. There's also a chapter on the fees per task. And if on-site tasks are foreseen, the expert is supposed to travel, mostly to Brussels. And there are rules for reimbursement of experts invited by the Commission that are linked. There's a link in the contract. And it's important also to read this kind of administrative document. However, normally our colleagues from the operational side, so the call coordinators, send out also guidance on how to organize your travel. Lastly, I wanted to mention that on point 6 of the contract, there is an email address which is mentioned and which is the main contact point for experts when they have questions related to contract, to the evaluation and payments, most importantly. Then, yes, if there is an on-site evaluation, if there is work in Brussels, of course, we prepare all the logistics behind it. So we prepare your badges, and we also come and present a briefing on payment procedure with screenshots from the portal to explain the various steps on how to get the reimbursement, which is usually done at the end, after the end of the whole evaluation. It's one single payment usually, and the payment will include the fees for the tasks carried out and the reimbursement of the travel expenses if there was the on-site evaluation. We also offer an expert help desk during the on-site evaluation for those experts who would like to visit us and ask more detailed questions. Lastly, we have our payment. We have a lot of people working in the payment service because we manage, of course, if we have 25,000 contract, we also have a corresponding number of payments, and so we are in contact with experts who need to clarify some points together with the operational units as well. And we also cover VAT issues for those experts who need a VAT exemption certificate. So the right way to proceed is to use the email address mentioned on the contract and ask us for that information. For any other question, if there is no contract yet, I would also like to remind you that there's the Research Inquiry Service that provides a good service to reply to questions, and which is available in the Guidance Documents tab, which is on the portal. So under Work as an Expert, there is the Guidance Document tab, and you have a reference to the Research Inquiry Service. So this is all I wanted to say. Thank you for your attention, and ready to answer any question you may have.
Many thanks, Manuela. So with this, we finish the presentations of this first block. I remind you that we will open now the questions and answer session, but then after this session, we will have an additional presentation about how to navigate with our portal. So as I mentioned, in order to apply for a call, to reply to the call for expression of interest for experts, and to interact with us, you do it through the portal, and you need to have an ECAS account. Yeah. So Peter, in the second block, will show you how to register in this ECAS account, and also important information about the needed two-factor authentication that we are little by little introducing in our portal. So please stay with us after this question and answer session, because we still have to give you very important information on how to interact with us through the portal. So let's start with the questions now. So I see in Slido that we have received many questions. So this is very good for us because we have plenty of time to reply those questions. And I go to the first one. So the first one is, how can I know that my profile is selected? Is it based on keywords? I have registered as an expert for a long time, but not been contacted so far. So I think we had many questions in Slido asking why experts registered in our database are not contacted. And the first reply that I can give, and I will pass the floor later on to Theodoros, is that, yes, so as we mentioned today, we select the experts based on the expertise and skills that we need. And we need the expertise and skills of link to the calls that are open for proposals at a certain moment. So we really go to the database of experts and we look for keywords in the experts profiles, in the experts CVs in our database, for the keywords that we need to evaluate our proposals. As I mentioned, we do about 25,000 contracts a year, and there are 250,000 experts registered. So it is normal that it takes some time to be contacted. But maybe, Theodoros, if you want to add something, please.
Exactly. Thanks, Isabel. Well, just to complement what you said, that of course it's based on keywords, but not only that. I mean, we search in the back office, in the experts database for specific keywords, but we look into the CVs, actually, into the profiles that you as experts created there. So we don't focus only on keywords. We see your qualifications, we see your CV, your professional experience, your language skills. Everything takes into consideration when we select experts, of course, depending on the needs of each call. I have to say here that over the years, especially in Horizon Europe, at the beginning of Horizon Europe, so during the last 4 years, we have made efforts to renew the pool of experts that we use every year. And we have specific targets mentioned earlier, 25% of newcomers, people that never worked before in the last 3 years. But even more, 10% on average, I would say, 10% of brand new experts. These are people that never been contracted before. These are requirements that each call coordinator tries to respect. Otherwise, the pool of experts is not actually approved. So we have to respect on this. One piece of advice, if I can say to those people that have not been invited yet, because first is, of course, to be invited in the pool of experts, and then, of course, to be selected, to be contracted. So there are 2 steps, as I mentioned in my presentation. First, you're invited in the pool. We have the pool of experts. This might be from hundreds to thousands of people, depending on the call. And then as soon as the call closes, then there is the matching of the proposals that are submitted, the keywords of the proposals with the experts. So one piece of advice, if I may, is to ask you to update your profiles regularly. This is, we have spotted many cases of people forgot to update profiles, to have inaccurate information, because what we do when we create or we try to create the pool is to double check and confirm that the information that you self-declare in the portal is actually valid and updated. We check, I mentioned earlier, external database, we cross-check, we confirm professional qualifications, we confirm professional experience. So a piece of advice is always to have an updated CV, to cross-check your profile also to external databases, and to avoid double profiles. Double profiles is really a bottleneck in our process. If we find experts with double profiles, it's a hassle to process this. So if I have an advice to those people not selected, I would say these points. Thank you, Isabel.
Thank you very much. And of course, so you will know if you are contacted. So the call coordinator, this will be the first person to contact you in order to see whether you agree to assist us with evaluations. So the next question is there a minimum age limit to becoming an evaluator or monitor? Can young scientists with lower age and limited number of publications become one? Maybe Alberto, if you want to reply. Or...
Yes, I can reply. There is no minimum age limit to become an evaluator or a monitor. As we have explained, it will depend if you are selected of your area of expertise and the needs that we need to evaluate proposals or monitor projects. Then you can be a young scientist. If you have the expertise in a particular field, in a particular project, you can be a monitor of a project that we need to monitor, or you can participate in the evaluations of proposals of your field.
Thank you very much. I hope this is a good answer. So next question is, where do I declare the income from these assignments? Is it tax-free? Manuela? Yeah.
Yes. No, it's not tax-free. So the contract says it clearly that income for the assignments must be declared to your national tax authorities. And it's the matter that you need to bring up with in your annual tax declaration, you have to fill it in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much, Manuela. So we continue with the next question. Does the European Commission work with repeat evaluators? Because I've been registered for years and never been contacted so far. I think we have already explained, but maybe Theodoros, if you want to add.
I think we covered this. We don't, I mean, obviously, a certain percentage of evaluators are reused, and especially experienced experts that we promote. Actually, we have this step process that people, experts that have been used for many years, then they can be promoted to the post of to be used as a chair or vice chair or even independent observer. So definitely there is a repeat of evaluators, but this is limited, I would say. I mean, we actively try, all of us, to renew the pools. We even look, something that I forgot to mention earlier, we even look on newly registered experts in the experts database. This is something that some of the call for proposals start recently, to not only look on people that have never been contracted, but also people that newly registered in the database, because we want to ensure that new blood is coming in the pool of experts.
Thank you. So we continue with the next question. What expertise are you mostly missing in your current expert pool? Well, this is a difficult question. I don't know if somebody here can reply. But no, as I mentioned, we have 200,000, more than 200,000 experts in our database. And we normally have no problems in finding the expertise we need in this database. Of course, there are specific calls. This, what Theodoros mentioned, these top-down calls in which we open a call for proposals in a very niche area. And because this is a niche area, we know that there will not be many experts also around, and most of them are already participating in the proposal submitted. So in those cases, yes, maybe we miss this expertise, but so far this is not a big problem that limited us to perform the evaluation as it should be. When we miss expertise in the database, and I think Theodoros also mentioned this, we go outside. So we also look for expertise outside of our database. And then once we detect the persons that we need, we ask them to register in our database. With this, we also do. But in my opinion, and with probably very, very few exceptions, we just have the expertise that we need in our database. Not sure if you want to add anything, Theodoros.
Not really. I mean, I have to emphasize that indeed, I mean, only exceptionally we go outside the expert database in niche topics and in emerging maybe technologies or something, an emerging field that is missing, then we go outside. But this is very rarely on top-down calls. On bottom-up calls, usually we're covered with what we find in the expert database.
Okay, thank you. So I think we can move to the next question. How do you ensure that evaluators are not reviewing proposals of their friends? How do you ensure zero bias?
Yes,
Theodoros.
This is a valid question, and we take it very seriously. I mean, this is part of the conflict of interest check that we do. The conflict of interest, it's quite substantial, I have to say. I mean, we do it, of course, we ask the evaluators to confirm that there's no conflict of interest, but we do our checks as well. We cross-check the proposals, even the text, and of course, if we see any relation with the experts employed, then immediately we point this out and we try to disqualify or remove those experts, those evaluators on these proposals. We always emphasize in all the briefings that for us, conflict of interest identification is very crucial. It ensures the credibility of the whole approach. So we put a lot of emphasis in the briefings, but also in internal checks that we run. We cross-check the proposals against the CVs of the experts, and we try to identify connections, and we bring this to the experts themselves to try to solve them.
Okay, thank you, Theodoros. So we can continue with the next question. Do you allow yeah, so I think I have now a new question. What happens if you have to decline an invitation to participate in an expert assignment due, for instance, for a high workload? Will you not be contacted again? So Alberto, can you reply this? Or? Yes.
I can reply on this because we got this question indeed. Because it's normal, people that have other job to do and they are invited to participate in evaluations, they are not available due to workload or due to traveling. So it's quite normal. And we don't penalize those people. I mean, we accept this. And of course, we don't blacklist those people that cannot participate in expert assignments due to other reasons. It's not a problem for us. I mean, this is a normal procedure, and we just, I mean, if the expertise is there and is needed the coming years, then there's no problem for these people to be invited again in the pool for experts.
Yes, Emanuela.
Maybe also we can add that some of the experts who are excluded for a conflict of interest for a specific call, I mean, they will be recontacted anyway for another call. It's the same procedure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So we continue with the next question. Do you allow non-EU nationality profiles as evaluators, even though they have worked more than 10 years in a EU member state? I am asking for myself, Thai national. Alberto?
Yes, I can answer these questions. Of course, our expert database is open to register for everybody. It's not only for EU nationalities, and as we explained, you will be selected and contracted depending on your expertise, not depending on your nationality.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can continue with the next question. Are there trainings for evaluators? I will reply and then I will ask Theodoros to reply. So we normally organize in the unit that I work in, the business process unit of the Common Implementation Center, we organize info days or implementation days that we do this regularly, and one of them is on submission and evaluation of proposals. Of course, these trainings or info days are more focused to participants in proposals, but we also give important information for evaluators. For evaluators, when they are contacted and participating in evaluators, the call coordinator will organize briefings, and Teodoro, I think you can.
Absolutely, Isabel. As soon as the experts are contracted and they are invited to participate, the first starting point is always a training given on to explain first the call specificities, second what we are looking for, what is the procedure, what are the steps, who are the people involved. So there's a detailed level of trainings depending on the call, of course, detailed level of trainings in different things, from the allocation of proposals to experts to the evaluation to the quality check, depending on the role that you will play in the evaluation.
Thank you very much. So we can go to the next question. There are for-profit training consultancies that are registered experts for Horizon who obviously bring bias and self-benefits. Why is this allowed? Can you reply to this?
This is a bit sensitive. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, in my call and when we search for experts, of course we don't. We are a bit sensitive if we see professional experience of an expert working in consultancies, and especially in preparing proposal applications, because it's different if you work in a consultancy for profit consultancies to do other type of work, but especially for those people that their main job is to write proposals, then of course we are a bit sensitive on this. So we dig a bit more into the profiles.
No.
Yes, and I would add as well that they don't have frequently the expertise which is really asked, because if their job is consultancy, they don't have the same expertise of researchers or academic or people from from the private sector as well.
Yeah. So maybe I also add that to register in the database is free, so anyone can register in the database. We don't limit any registration. But of course, once we select the experts that will participate in evaluations, as we have explained during the morning, we really look into the skills that we need, the experience of the expert, and then that there is no conflict of interest with the proposal. This we look very carefully. So being registered in the database is free. We don't put limitations, but of course we do check the experts that will participate in our evaluations. So we check that they are free from conflict of interest. Yeah. So I think we can go to the next question. In what kind of cases are evaluators summoned into Brussels? How often does this happen? Maybe Theodoros?
Yes, yes, I can reply on this. Well, I have to say that in Horizon Europe, and especially after COVID, I mean, we rely more and more into remote evaluations, as we call them. More and more calls are doing the whole evaluation remotely, meaning that you don't have to come to Brussels. However, this depends, of course, on the specificities of the call. There are calls, especially top-down calls, narrow topics that require experts to come here to sit for a few days in Brussels and to discuss the proposal with the other experts. But for bottom-up calls, the case, I would say, in most of the cases is to do the big part of the evaluation remotely, and maybe only the vice chairs to be invited during the panel week or during the allocation phase in Brussels. So it really depends on the type of call and on specificities.
Yes, thank you. So there was, just to reply to the previous question, there was just one with the COVID. So we had a period in which all the evaluation was remote. And now we are little by little coming back to the previous methodology in which the individual evaluation of the proposals is done remotely. And then we have 1 week or 3 to 4 days in which we call all experts to come to Brussels and discuss the consensus and panel phase, as you mentioned, Theodoros. Yes, I think we can go to the next question. Do you consider having a PhD a priority in the selection of experts? Theodoros?
Yes, this is again depends on the call, I have to say. I mean, I can talk from my perspective as a call coordinator in postdoctoral fellowships in Marie Skłodowska-Curie. I mean, we are looking for experts. We are looking for proposals for a postdoctoral fellowship. So for us, the expertise and the possession of a PhD, it's more or less a requirement, because we are asking experts to assess the proposals for postdoctoral fellowship. So for that type of call, research-intensive calls, then I would say the PhD is a priority. On the other hand, there are other calls that are very top-down, very focused on specific domain. In that case, maybe a PhD is not needed. Maybe a professional experience in specific domain is the requirement. So it really depends again.
Yes, indeed. As you mentioned, so there are calls in which we call for areas in which they are closer to the markets. So the European Innovation Council, some calls in the clusters in Pillar 2. And for those calls, we also need expertise of people working in industry. And in those cases, a PhD will not be a requirement, yes. So it depends on the call, yeah, on the type of call. So I think we can continue to the next question. Which is the minimum scientific level needed to be selected as expert, PhD, academic? Can professional experience in the field be enough? How and when? I think we replied this to, it's the same replies as in the previous question. So let's go to the next one. Let's say you have 250,000 experts and you use keywords among other criteria. How does one ensure that they end up among the top of this search? Theodoros.
I think the answer is that you can never ensure that you are on top of the search. It doesn't matter how many criteria you put and what level of expertise you put. Of course, every time, every call for proposals is start from scratch, is start looking the call coordinators for the missing keywords that they are looking, or for the keywords that are relevant for the call itself. So there's no, I would say, advice to give on to be on top of the search. It really depends on the keywords, but not only on the keywords I mentioned earlier, because the call coordinators and the project officers are also looking at the CV, the professional experience and everything that you add in the expert database.
Thank you. Next question is for you, Alberto. Can you explain again the newcomer concept? It was too fast. Yeah.
Yes, of course, I can't explain again the concept of the newcomers. We consider a newcomer an expert that, for example, for a particular call in Horizon Europe, has not been contracted for Horizon Europe in the last 3 years. And I will give the example. Imagine that we have at the moment a call in 2025. Then an expert that was participating in the evaluation of a proposal in 2024, but has not been contracted for the last 3 years, we consider that this expert is a newcomer for Horizon Europe. I hope that is more clear now.
Yes, thank you. I believe we can go to the next one. Is there a limit to number of years you can be an expert evaluator? Alberto, you?
Is there a limit to number of years you can be?
No,
No.
so there is no limit.
There is
so we
no
don't
limit,
we don't have a
but
limit.
we have the rotation rules in place.
90K. Yeah.
Exactly, the 90K over 4 years, and of course, beyond that limit, you will not be contracted.
Okay, thank you. So I think we can go to the next question. My nationality is non-EU. I have been engaging in European projects for more than 15 years and domiciliated in Germany. Am I eligible to be an evaluator? Alberto? Yeah.
Yes, you are eligible to be an evaluator. As we said, the expert database is open to all nationalities, and you will be eligible, of course.
Thank you very much. I think we can go to the next question. Do you mean that newly registered profiles have higher chances than older registered ones? Should I close my profile and create a new profile then? So no, please don't do this.
No,
but
don't
the
do
others-
this. This is a double profile and creates problems, issues. What I meant with newly registered profiles is that, of course, if you have never contracted before, you are a brand new expert. And if you are registered there since long years, you remain there and you still keep considered as a brand new expert. It doesn't matter if you get registered in the last 2 years or in 10 years in the past. With newly registered profiles, I mean, in some calls, especially in my risk reduction security calls, because we try to bring more and more people, new experts, and especially experts that finished the PhD recently, or they finished their academic qualifications recently, and they get registered in the database, then we make an effort, but there's no specific targets to do that. You have exactly the same chances if you are newly registered or older registered expert.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe we can continue. Since the newcomer threshold has to be 25%, and this can be old evaluators, what is the percentage of brand new newcomers who has never evaluated? Well, I can give you an answer. So we don't have a target for the brand new experts that we include in every pool of evaluators, but we try to always include brand new experts. And Theodoros mentioned that the percentage in the current percentage of brand new experts that is being used in our calls is about 10%. But this vary from one call to the other. I don't know if you want
Exactly.
to.
No, it's exactly that. I mean, this really varies between the call. In bottom-up calls, I would say it's around 10%. In others, might be less, might be more.
Okay, thank you. So we can continue. Which other databases do you consider to search for experts? Do you also use LinkedIn? Maybe you can answer.
This, I mean, we usually use the databases, I would say, in very limited cases when we search for niche profiles. What we make use of the external database is to validate your profile in experts database. So we go to this external database, for example, even LinkedIn, to check professional experience or qualifications, or other database mentioned earlier, Scopus, Sourceit, ResearchGate, and we try to validate your profile with what is mentioned there. In those limited cases that we are looking for some specific expertise, of course, LinkedIn could be one of the databases that we search for. But then please remember that if this is the case, the expert identified, of course, being conducted, needs to be registered in the expert database. Otherwise, he or she cannot be used, contracted.
Okay. Thank you very much. So next question is, I often hear that reimbursements for travel to Brussels is insufficient, specifically for hotels. If there are no hotels in the allocated amount, what can evaluators do, Manuela? Yes.
Yes. Actually, experts receive an accommodation allowance of €168 per night and a daily allowance of €113 per meeting day. So we consider that these amounts are sufficient to stay in Brussels. The amounts are lump sums that we don't request the hotel invoice, and you can combine these amounts as you wish. There is also a large offer of hotels in Brussels, and there are hotels, if you go a bit further than the area where the meetings are taking place, there is a possibility to get very reasonable hotel rooms, hotel rates. So you just go on internet, on booking.com without saying it, or also we have experts using Airbnb. So this is up to you as an expert.
Thank you. And we increased the amount recently, right?
Yes,
yeah.
In 2022 or 23, I forgot. The allowances were increased considerably because it was €100 for the accommodation allowance, and we reached €168 per night. So it's a good amount now.
Thank you. So next question, what type of keywords on the profile can I use? Please give us some examples. Thank you, Theodoros.
No,
difficult question. Yeah.
There is, I mean, we cannot give examples of this. I mean, really, I mentioned, I mean, what you have to ensure in your profile, in the expert database, is that you use the right keywords reflected in your CV. I mean, you cannot use random keywords just because are fashionable. It has to be reflected on your CV and your experience on your publications, because we cross-check that. If you put random keywords because they are fashionable, then of course this doesn't show a big credibility in your profile. So the keywords that you put there, it has to be reflected in the CV.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Alberto. Yeah.
Just maybe I can add that we use a taxonomy for the keywords, and then when you register and then we ask you to introduce keywords, you will find that some keywords appear. And we have more than 5,000 keywords there in the database, and you can choose these ones. But if you think that your area of expertise is not cover for the keywords that you use in our taxonomy, you can directly write and include the keywords that best reflect your expertise.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue with the next question. Is it necessary to have Horizon implementation experience and or academic work background to be selected in the experts pool? Thank you, Theodoros, for you.
In some calls, I would say, well, Horizon implementation experience, probably not. Academic background and research experience, more specifically, probably in some calls it's required. In some others, it's not so relevant. For example, we mentioned earlier the case of EIC over there, or calls that are close to market. Over there, the professional experience, working with industry, it might be more relevant than academic or research experience. So it's really depending on the call.
Okay, thank you. So we continue with the next question. Horizon Europe proposals consultant here. Yeah. Should I use technical funding keywords or scientific domain ones in my profile to be more visible to coordinators? I think we have already replied. I don't know, Theodoros.
No, we have covered this. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to use of course, as Alberto mentioned, there are predefined keywords. You have to select some of those that reflect your experience, your CV, and then in this free keyword space, you can add some additional. But of course, it has to be reflected on your experience. Otherwise, it's not relevant.
Okay, thank you. So next question is, what is the percentage of evaluators relative to the number of candidates? I don't know if these candidates refer to the persons in the database or... Well, this I mentioned that we have 250,000 experts registered, and we do about 25,000 contracts for evaluators every year. But maybe Theodoros.
I think it refers to candidates, meaning proposals, maybe. Proposals, number of proposals.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think in that case, maybe I can give an example from my call, postdoctoral fellowship to Marie Skłodowska-Curie, which is the highest call in number of proposals. Over there, last year, we had around 10,000 proposals submitted, and we use around 4,000 evaluators, both expert evaluators, vice chairs, and chairs to support the experts. I mean, the bottom line is that you need at minimum 3 evaluators for all calls, and then the maximum can be 5, can be even higher in some calls that there are specific expertise is needed. The minimum is always 3 evaluators to assess each proposal.
Yes, and the number of proposals per evaluators, it depends on the call.
Depends on the call.
Depends on the call. So for complex calls, top-down calls, maybe maximum 6 proposals, but there are other calls in which the evaluators evaluate more than this number. Yeah. So next question is, you said almost all work will be done remotely. How much in-person work we have to plan when applied for an expert, and what kind of in-person work? I don't know, maybe Alberto? Yeah.
Maybe I can answer these questions. As I said, most of the work is going to be done remotely. And if we are speaking about the evaluations, and Theodoros maybe can complement, we think that it will take you from 2 to 3 weeks to carry out the individual evaluations. And then for the consensus group and the panel review, that this work can be remote. Post-COVID, a lot of calls done this work remotely. It takes normally 1 week. And for this week, we will need your full availability. But you will be contacted, and first, before we issue the contracts, we will ask you if you are going to be available to carry out the evaluations, and we will tell you what are the time that we will need you. Maybe.
Absolutely. Alberto, I think you described well the process. I mean, if you are conducted by the call coordinator to be included in the pool of experts, the first thing it asks you is the availability request, we call it. We ask for your availability. We explain the timing. If there is a need for in-person, in Brussels work, then it will be clearly stated there. So you will know this in advance, months in advance, before even contracted. So you express your availability, you confirm your availability, and then if you're selected and contracted, again, we ask to confirm your availability for in-person work, and it goes like that. I mean, in various levels, we always make sure that you are informed about the possibility of in-person work in Brussels.
Thank you very much. So we continue with the next question. My profile on my ESPER area has been 100% complete for over 5 years, and I have never been invited to be an ESPER. Who can I contact to ask why? So I believe we have replied to this question. So yeah, so
well, it takes time. I mean, we have seen the example of the chair and vice chair earlier from Jose. I mean, he registered in 2002. I assume he had an updated profile complete, and then he got first conducted in 2009. So it took 7 years. So it might take time. It might take time to get invited.
Okay, thank you. So next question, is this aimed at researchers and people who intend to evaluate proposal at high level, or administrators who may need to know what to look for in applications? I'm not sure if I understand the question, but maybe.
I think I understood the question. Yeah. It's, well, I have to say that the bottom line, explained also in the presentation, both by Alberto and me, is that you are an expert in your field. This is the starting point. If you are not an expert, if you don't understand the science or the requirements, then probably it's not the right call for you. I mean, we're not looking for administrators. We're looking for people that really understand and have the expertise needed to judge the scientific part of the proposal, at least.
Okay, thank you. So next question is, could you advise us on which skill set to highlight in your application? I assume transversal skills are great to highlight. I think we have already replied, but not sure if Theodoros you want to add. No, nothing to add. I think we already replied, yeah. So next question, I think we also replied, is age a criterion for eligibility of an ESPER? Alberto, you mentioned it's not. No. Yeah.
And maybe I can mention here, because we got this question. Of course, there's no minimum age, but also maximum age. Because I mean, especially in bottom-up calls that we contract thousands of people, then we have senior people. So we don't discriminate, not only the young, but also the old people. We have plenty of cases of experts that they are of older age and keep used as evaluators.
Mm-hmm. So next question is, how do you respect national tax and social law for the payment through an individual contract? Emanuela, yeah.
Well, just it's at the end some fees an expert receives, and these fees need to be declared as any other income. So that's it. You just need to, as I say, every year we need to fill in a tax declaration, and you can also contact your national tax office, because they might give you some advice, but the amounts should be declared. That's the way it goes.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue with the next question. A trainer for Horizon Europe let in passing that he is an evaluator and have evaluated proposals. So he has insights on submitted proposals. Is this okay to let happen? So if I understand well, you are asking whether it is okay to evaluate proposals and participate in proposals. Of course, this is okay, always that it's not in the same call. Yeah. So of course, if you are sending a proposal, you will never be asked to be an evaluator for this call, because you will have a conflict of interest. But you can be evaluator of another calls, yeah, in which you don't have conflict of interest. Maybe Theodoros.
Yes.
You can, yeah.
I have to say here that all the experts that sign the contract with us, they need to comply with confidentiality and impartiality, meaning that they should never discuss aspects of any proposal that they were involved in the evaluation with external people. There are cases that we have been aware of this, and of course we took action. So in principle, it's not allowed people that used as evaluators to discuss elements of proposals that they evaluate with external people. This is not allowed.
Yes, indeed, Esper signed a contract and there is a confidentiality clause there. We take it very seriously. If you know that this is not respected, you just let us know, yeah, and we can take measures. So, but this is something serious, and yeah, an expert needs to respect confidentiality. So let's continue with the next question. How are Horizon Europe experts paid? Can a civil servant, such a professor, get a workload reduction? Emanuela, yeah.
Yes, so normally when you decide to sign a contract, just before you sign the contract, you can, I mean, if you have a contract already with a university, for instance, you must inform your employer. It's something you should do, and see with your employer what he can accept or not. So, but it's not us entering this issue and asking for a workload reduction for you. So experts are paid the fees for the tasks they carry out, and they have sufficient information in the contract to make a rough calculation, and they can see then with their own employer if this is acceptable or not.
Okay, thank you. So we continue with the next question. Which type of experts would be needed for the role of monitors? Maybe Alberto, or it's the same type?
It's the same type. When you register in the expert database, you register as an expert, and depending on your expertise, you can be selected to evaluate proposals or to monitor a project.
Indeed, so we are more focusing the information that we are passing in this info day on evaluators, because the bulk contracts that we perform are for evaluators. So it is really a small percentage of the contracts that, in comparison with those of evaluators, that we do with monitors. So let's go to the next question. How long the evaluation lasts? How much work can an expert expect? The contract is for one evaluation only. Is it for freelancers only?
Maybe Jose as well, no? Because
no, he is not with us. Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe Theodoros.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can ask the first part, then maybe I'll pass the floor to Manuel. The evaluation, I mean, from the time that the call closes, then as call coordinators that we manage the calls, we have an obligation to reply to the applicants, to pass the information to the applicants on the results of the evaluation within 5 months period. So within this 5-month period, your involvement, if you are engaged as an evaluator, is usually, I would say, around 3 or 4 months, depending on the call. So during this period, you have to do the individual phase, that you have to be engaged in the consensus phase, and then towards the end as well with a summary report if needed. So the whole period is 5 months to externalize the results, as we call it. However, your engagement usually for each evaluation, I would say it's between 2 or 3 months. And in terms of workload, it's again, we're trying to balance the workload, because the workload is balanced depending on the number of proposals, the number of experts we contract. So we always try to balance, to have a balanced workload. It depends. In some cases, you might have to assess 10 proposals, but these proposals might be very small, only 10 pages. In some other cases, calls, you might have to assess 5 proposals, but the proposal length might be much higher, 50, 60 pages. So it's really the workload depends on the call.
Yes, the contract is for one evaluation only. Most of the contracts are indeed for one evaluation only. So you just, as Theo just said, it's for the period it goes. But you have also the EIC, for example, has contracts that go for a whole year, but of course it's not, the evaluations take place at some moments only, and experts are usually paid for the various round of evaluations, but there is only one contract for the whole year. So this is the only case. Is it for freelancers only? No, it is not for freelancers only. As we say, there are professors from the academic sector, researchers from research institutes, and other people that have a job and do it on top, and that's it. So, but there can be also self-employed people, and generally these people ask then for a VAT exemption certificate when they introduce the payment.
Thank you. So next question, you say experts are chosen based on geography. Please, can you explain, Theodoros?
Of course, they are not chosen only based on geography. Geographical distribution is one of the parameters that we try to respect. And how we do that, I mean, in each call, we try to respect proportionally the population of countries, EU member states and associate countries. Associate countries, I'm not sure. EU member states, depending on the call, for sure. So proportionally, depending on the population, we try to reflect this in the experts selected in the pool, but also contracted. This is how we usually do it.
Thank you. So we continue with the next question. What project management, M&E certifications, etc., could be helpful and relevant to enhance opportunities for selections? Theodoros, can you answer this?
Well, project management, probably qualifications or certifications, it's more relevant as a monitor, maybe, if I would say.
This information is not what we are looking
exactly.
for.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's not critical for sure. It might be an added value, especially for monitors, but it's definitely not critical.
Okay, yes. So let's continue with the next question. What is considered expertise? If I have worked on a few projects within an area, is it enough? Or would you only consider the topic in which I received my PhD? So,
no, both, I would say. I mean, of course, a PhD is a big statement that you have the scientific expertise in this given area. However, I mean, since it might be years that you have finished your PhD and you might engaged in other activities, professional experience in specific domains, publication in other areas is also relevant. So interdisciplinary work is definitely added and taken into consideration. So it's not only your PhD domain, we also look at what you have done after your PhD.
Indeed, and I would add also that we have quite a number of calls in which these calls are calling for proposals very close to the market, in areas that are close to the market. And of course, here we also look for experts in industry that have experience in industry, and the PhD is not a requirement. So this we already mentioned here. So let's continue with the next question. How does employment confirmation is performed? Maybe Theo, can you?
Well, I mentioned in my presentation that we do this, we try to validate your self-declaration in the expert database with external database. For example, to check the employment confirmation might be a case of checking in LinkedIn, or it might be a case going to the institution, if it's an academic institution, and check that you are working there as a professor, or if you are in a company, we try to search on the internet. So there's a different level of checks and validations we can apply to confirm what you are self-declared in the expert is actually the reality.
Thank you. Next question is, what is a double profile? So, Manuela,
Yes, well, I mentioned it indeed. So it's creating a second registration on the portal. In this way, you create a new profile, and then it's true that at the expert selection level for a call, it brings big problems, and we have triple profiles, even more than that sometimes. So it requires then a long administrative procedure to empty one profile because you want to keep, let's say, history of your work and to which profile attach it. It's always a bit complicated. So the best is to have one single profile, and anyway, you will be contacted at some point if you have a double profile to make a selection.
Okay, thank you. So next question, is it possible to work as an evaluator while holding a permanent position? I think we have replied, maybe Alberto.
Yes, of course, it is possible to work as an evaluator even if you have a permanent position. A lot of professors work as evaluators. Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. So we continue. Next question. Are project managers with scientific background, PhD, required as experts? If yes, which expertise should we show? Project manager expertise or our scientific background? I think both, right?
Both, exactly, both. I mean, if you have such an expertise plus experience in project management, in industry or in academia, of course, you need to highlight those both elements.
Thank you. Next question is, can you please give examples for conflicts of interest? Thank you. I don't know who can reply.
I can reply. I mean, the basic example of a conflict of interest is to be engaged, to be involved in a proposal in this particular call. Of course, the basic principle behind conflict of interest check is that you never evaluate proposals or the whole call that you are involved somehow in the preparation of the proposal. This is the basic principle. And then there are other levels of conflict of interest. Of course, we always cross-check that you don't evaluate proposals from your institution, or there are different kinds of levels of disqualifying, as we call it, and conflict of interest that could be accepted as long as you don't evaluate a certain number of proposals.
So in the contracts, which is published in the portal, you also have the list of all the situations of conflict of interest and the implications of this conflict of interest, because it might be different. Sometimes you have a conflict of interest for the whole call, so you cannot evaluate any proposal. And in some cases, you only have conflict of interest with particular proposals, yeah, but you can evaluate other proposals. But in general, so if you benefit from the selection or rejection of a proposal in this call, this is meaning that you have a conflict of interest here. And we check this very carefully before any evaluation. So we go to the next question. Given the increasing use of artificial intelligence tools in proposal drafting, how does the Commission intend to address their use? Can you reply or? Well, yes, I can reply. No, in the proposal template for Horizon Europe, we have included recently instructions. So of course, it is not forbidden to use artificial intelligence tools to help drafting the proposal, but you have to recognize. So you have to show and as a reference in the proposal saying, I have used these tools, but it's not forbidden. It's true that we are probably receiving more proposals now than in previous years. So the oversubscription in some calls is increasing. And we are thinking in changing the methodology for the submission to avoid this oversubscription, because this is not good for the applicants. It's also not good for us because we need to evaluate many proposals, and knowing that only a few percentage of those proposals will be funded. So this is problematic, we know. So we are discussing new methodologies for evaluating, but this will only be for the next framework program starting in 2028, I think. So, but indeed we are having internal discussions. So maybe we even do something before this time, but we are aware of this problem, and we are thinking in changing a bit the methodology to submit a proposal and evaluating the proposal. For experts, of course, experts are, they sign a contract. They had to respect confidentiality of all the information that they receive during the evaluation. And of course, they are not allowed to upload any information to any public artificial intelligence tools. Yeah. So this is a requirement in the contract. Of course, if they can ensure that the artificial intelligence tool that they use respect confidentiality, which is, I think, difficult at this time, it will not be a problem. But the main argument here is that all data in proposals are confidential for them, and they need to respect this confidentiality clause for experts. So I hope this replied to the question. And we can continue to the next one. I have changed institution and thus created an account many times. Does this affect negatively to be selected as an expert? In my opinion, not. But of course, I think we have already replied about double profiles. So we check double profiles of experts. And if we detect double profiles, we will contact you and ask you to keep using the original one. Because, of course, in your original one, you can update the details. So if you change institution, no problem, you can update it in the profile.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, you don't have to create a new profile every time you change job or institution. I mean, you just update, even you update the email as well. I mean, you just work and update your existing profile. You don't go and create a new one. This will create the problems that Manuela mentioned earlier with double profiles.
And for the ECAS account, of course, your email changes, the ECAS account changes, but you can also, we publish in the portal how to manage the change of the email in the same ECAS account. This is something that you should do. So let's continue with the next question. Keywords, terminology, jargon vary by field, sector, and expertise. How do we know we are using the right keywords to be selected? Yeah.
You don't know this. I mean, the answer is don't try to play this game in your profile. You just need to write the keywords, to select the keywords, and to write, if needed, additional 3 keywords that reflect your actual expertise and experience in professional publication or whatever. Don't try to use some rights, as you put it in brackets, keywords, in order to increase your chances of being selected. Because as we have shown, there's a big variation of calls. There's a wide range of calls, wide range of needs in all kind of domains, scientific domains or professional experience. So I don't think it's a right approach.
Yes.
Yes, maybe I can add that, as I said, we when we prepare these predefined keywords, we use the OECD taxonomy and we expand it to the needs that we have for Horizon Europe. But when our emerging fields, we also keep updating this keywords taxonomy, and we add new keywords when these are needed. Then I think that in terms of scientific fields and technology, we cover all the scientific fields and technology. And as I say, we have more than 5,000 predefined keywords. Then they should be there, the keywords that will reflect your expertise. If not, you include the open ones. But it's not a question of different jargon or terminology. We cover this with the predefined ones that we have.
Thank you very much. Let's continue with the next question. Recently, I gave up on a contract due to a conflict of interest that I have signaled. Will this affect in any way my future selections as evaluators? I believe we already replied. The answer is not. Yeah, so it will not affect. So I think we can continue. What situations or conditions might create a conflict of interest that could disqualify a candidate from being selected? I think we have already replied. Yeah, so if your organization is participating in any proposal of the call, in many cases you will be disqualified. So this, of course, is something that we also look into the size of the organization. For instance, for national research centers, we know that there are different laboratories that are quite independent from each other, and in this case, we will disqualify the expert only from the proposal in which the organization appears, if it is not the same laboratory. But in other cases, for small companies, if the company is participating in a proposal in this call, this expert cannot participate as evaluated. This is an example. But we really look into this seriously before any evaluation. So let's continue with the next question. Is it mandatory requirement to have a published scientific paper or article in order to be selected as an evaluator? Maybe, Theo, yeah.
Yes, it's not a mandatory requirement, obviously. Again, if you have published scientific paper or article, it's a statement that you have a specific expertise on this particular domain. And of course, this will be counted when we search for experts. In calls that are more research-oriented, then of course it's a big added value to have scientific publications or articles and to show this in your profile. In other calls that are more towards market, maybe it's not so relevant.
Okay, thank you. So let's continue. Choosing evaluators for bottom-up calls, how can ensure newcomers if you are basing the expert selection on previous polls? This is for you. Yeah.
Yes, of course, I mentioned this in my presentation, the bottom-up calls. We're talking about thousands of proposals, thousands of experts in those cases. So the starting point is always the previous call, the previous pool of experts. But then, on top of this is the starting point, but we apply the measures that I mentioned earlier, the 25% strict rule for newcomers. So meaning that 25% of the new pool, it has to be newcomers, 10% it has to be brand new experts. We have to renew on additional expertise if needed. We do a keyword search and we find gaps. So we always populate. So the starting point is, of course, the previous year pool, but this is heavily renewed every year, I would say. So it's not like it remains the same.
Thank you. We continue. I am an experienced and very qualified network engineer in private sector, but not involved in research. Do I qualify for expert candidates? I think so. Yes, of course you are. Yeah. So we, as I said, we also have a number of calls which are top down, so in very niche areas, in very technological, very close to the market, and we need there also expertise of people working in industry and private sector. Yes, of course you are qualified. Yeah. So let's continue. Experts who belong to an organization or have themselves expressed boycott against Israel can be selected for proposals with beneficiaries from Israel. This we do not control this. So in our expert database, we of course don't ask you whether you have boycotted Israel or not. This is not an information that is in our hand. However, it is in your hand to accept or not accept work as an evaluator when you are proposed by people in the European Commission to work as an evaluator. It's your decision. So this is in your hands. I don't know if somebody wants to add anything. No. Okay. Continue. Can research administrators who have earlier research experience be selected as evaluators? Yes.
Yes.
So the answer is yes. I think we have already replied this. So I believe we can continue. Did I understand correctly that the compensation for the expertise provided by experts is 150 euros per day? No. So maybe Manuela, yeah.
Or Alberto. Or Alberto.
Maybe I can say no. You misunderstood. What I said is that when you need to come to Brussels, we pay per day 450 euros, no 150 euros. This is what I said during the presentation. Then this is for we pay some work by days, and it's 450 euros, but we also pay other type of job, for example, for the individual evaluation, the drafting of the individual evaluation reports, we pay there an amount. And this amount is going to vary depending on the complexity of the proposals. For very complex proposals, we pay more than for drafting an individual evaluation report for a little complex proposals, as Theodore says, of 10 pages. Then we pay depending on the complexity of the proposals that you are going to evaluate.
So in summary, so we paid, when you come to Brussels, when you travel, we pay 450 per day. When you do remote work, we pay for this remote work, but this depends on the complexity of the proposals. And then also when you travel, in addition to these 450 euros, we pay some allowances for the accommodation.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
the allowances are 100.
So 168 euro per night and 113 euro as per diem, as daily allowance.
Okay.
Per meeting day, so it's not paid for traveling days.
Per day. Yeah.
And yes, one important thing concerning the tasks, it's important that to read carefully the contract, to see what is this amount per complexity and so on, because then you need to maybe multiply it by the number of tasks done, and so it's a varying amount at the end. And it's not, there's also in the contract, there's a maximum amount of the contract. This is the amount which is reserved by expert per evaluation, but you are not systematically paid the maximum amount mentioned on the contract, because it's really based on the task performed and carried out, and that's it. It's important to know that.
Okay. Thank you. So we continue with the next question. Do you expect reasons such as Israel involvement valid for declining an offer? Does this affect their future selection? We don't have reasons, valid reasons or not valid reasons for declining or accepting an offer. It is all in your hands. So it is your decision when you receive an offer to participate in an evaluation to tell us, I accept or I don't accept. So it is all in your hands. And I think we already replied, this will not affect your participation in future selections. So we can continue. Are people with experience in EU financial management applicable for experts? Yes, of course, they are. And in particular, we have a number of lump sum calls now in Horizon Europe. And for these lump sum calls, we are really looking for experts with financial and research expertise. So both, yeah. But we are also looking into financial expertise. So of course, yes. And this is maybe one of the expertise that we are missing in the database. So we probably don't have sufficient expertise here. Yeah. Next question. Can retired professor apply? You already replied. Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. Next, we hear that specifically social science and humanities experts are needed. Can you confirm? Yes, we confirm in many of the calls, social science and humanities is an expertise that we need. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what you have to do is to read carefully the core publication that we mentioned over there. It's mentioned specifically the needs for social science and humanity, if needed, and if it's mentioned there, then actively the core coordinators will look for experts with that type of expertise. So definitely, we confirm that this type of experts are needed and used as evaluators.
Thank you. So next question, how often an expert is selected for project review? Can it be assigned to 2 projects or more at the same time? The answer is yes, because, but it's again, all in your hands to accept or decline offers. So if you think that you cannot with all the work that you have been offered, then you can always say no, but we do not have restrictions. Yeah, of course, maybe the European Commission and the services dealing with Horizon Europe program is large. We have many services, different executive agencies, and maybe people are not fully aware of if other services is also contracting you for another project review. Although it's information that they can find in our database, maybe they find your expertise very relevant and still offer you another possibility. So we don't have restrictions. Yeah. So next question. How can absence of conflict of interest be ensured if experts are selected before deadline, where incoming applications are yet unknown? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Let me explain a bit about this. Conflict of interest is checked at two timings, two levels. The first is, of course, when we populate the pool of experts, we select experts. At that time, we ask the experts themselves to declare that they don't have any conflict of interest. So it's a self-declaration because we don't have the means to cross-check. We don't know the applications yet. So this is the first level of conflict of interest. Then, as soon as we have the proposals and we can cross-check, then we ask again, of course, the applicants to confirm, the select applicants, that there's no conflict of interest, but we do checks, cross-checks ourselves. We check the proposals against the profile of the experts and we identify conflict of interest. And not only that, there are cases often that during the evaluation, if we identify or if we are informed about the conflict of interest of an expert participating in a proposal in the evaluation, then of course we take action even during the evaluation to disqualify those experts. So it's a process that starts, of course, at the selection, but finishes really going through all the end, even towards the end of the evaluation.
Thank you. So next question. The deadline for proposals in Pillar 2 Cluster 4 Digital is in October 2025. When experts are chosen for these calls? I think Theo already explained this. Of course, it depends on the call. This call is a top-down call, it's not a bottom-up. So the call coordinator will not know the proposals, the content of this proposal until the deadline. So we don't have this information until the deadline is over. So the call coordinator will only know what is the expertise that they need exactly after the deadline. However, because it's a top-down call, we know the area and they can already start looking for experts before the deadline, but a bit before the deadline. But the pool of experts for this call will be finalized a few weeks after the deadline, I could say. Yeah. So next question, what expertise is needed for rapporteurs? I don't know, Theo, if you can answer this.
Rapporteurs need to have first a level of experience. So usually we allocate the role of the rapporteur to an experienced expert that has already done an evaluation as an individual evaluator. And of course, they need to understand the process, depending on the call. They need to have good drafting skills. They need to communicate well with the other experts to collect the feedback and to help all this group of people to reach consensus, both in the text and in the score. So in most of the cases, not all, I mean, there are cases that brand new experts are assigned the role of rapporteur, but I would say the big majority of rapporteurs are usually experts that have already a bit of experience with evaluation, maybe 1 or 2 years even.
Is the evaluator database publicly available, either for transparency or to assist organizations nudge all experts to register? No, the database is not publicly available. We have personal data here and is protected. So it is only accessible for staff in the EU, but not for externals. However, we also collaborate with member states and they can ask us to assess our expert database. And for this, we have a process in which we receive a request, we check and our legal units accept or not this request. In this case, we can give access to the experts database, but it's not publicly available. Yeah.
Maybe I can add here, Isabel, that when you register, at the end you will be asked to opt for which a part of the European Commission if you want to be your expert profile available for organization in member states. Then in this case, if a member state, an organization, a research organization from a member state requests access to the expert database, this expert that opted to have the expert profile available will be seen by the research organization.
So we need to ask for permission to share the data, indeed. Yeah. Thank you. Next question: do you use artificial intelligence tools to support the selection process of experts? I suppose. Yeah.
Yes. No, we don't use AI tools, especially for the selection process. This is done, as mentioned, explained in my presentation. What we use, but it's not AI actually. It's in some internal tools to support some of the calls to do the matching, the pre-allocation of proposals to experts. And this is only to have the first step to allocate proposals to expert, but not with AI, some internal tools that do the pre-allocation, the pre-matching, if we say. But then, of course, this pre-allocation is always validated by humans, by experts, by vice chairs, by EU staff.
Yes, thank you. Next question: is it possible for experts to receive a notification from the funding and tenders portal when a specific call is published that is aligned with expertise? Well, it's a good idea. This is not the case for the time being, but in any case, we have so many calls open that you also can go to the portal actively and check whether there is a call, because you can also search for calls in a certain area in the funding and tenders portal. But we take notes. I don't know if you have any comments, but this is an idea. Thank you. Next question: my profile has been flagged as possible duplicate profile, but how can I identify the duplicated profile? IT support did not reply after several contacts. Emanuela, yes.
Well, normally you should be able to get a reply from the IT support. Try again. Maybe you didn't. You can send also, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can send also this question to the Research Inquiry Service. Maybe they can also raise it at another level.
Yes, thank you. So normally if you contact us, we should reply, otherwise just insist or go for a different channel. There are different channels published in the portal. So I think we have the two last questions because we need to go to the last block of this event. So next question is, what does the EU tend to tender the evaluation of the calls and proposals? Putting the evaluation into the hands of private companies. I don't know what does it mean. We never put the evaluations in the hands of private companies. We do the evaluations ourselves internally. So of course, in Horizon Europe is a peer review process. We rely only on external expertise. Yeah, but the evaluation is organized inside. Yeah, exactly. By our own staff. Yeah. And the last question that we accept is, what steps would you take to become a call coordinator? What kind of experience do you need? Well, call coordinators are staff. I don't know if that was clear, but maybe Theo, you can...
Exactly. That's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, of course, call coordinators are EU staff, internal staff. So you need to be a staff member. You need to have experience in evaluation as project officer, panel coordinator, and then at some point you might be assigned the role of call coordinator.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to all of you. Very glad that you were here with this event. I hope it was also useful for you. But we didn't finish. Please stay with us because we have one last presentation in which my head of unit, Peter Hartwig, which give you insights on what to do to get an ECAS account, and also the changes that there are coming in this ECAS account to increase security and the need to have a two-factor authentication for this ECAS account. So, Peter, thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know which camera I have to look.
In front of you.
Hello, and yes, again, we are now becoming a bit technical, but this is the last presentation, and it's in the first instance also an alert that something will happen soon with the possibilities to access our systems, and this will also be important for the experts, or even if you are not yet an expert, if you want to become an expert. But before I start with this, I will make one particular comment to one of the last questions here about, yes, sorry, 1 second, about the possibility to get notifications or recommendations for calls that might be of your interest. Since a while, we have a new function in the Funding and Tenders portal where you can subscribe and you can also get recommendations. So if you go to your portal account and your personal profile, you can switch on these recommendations, and then our system will try to understand what you are interested in and will give you this kind of recommendations in the future. This just as a side remark. I start now with my presentation. Yes, okay. Thank you. So we spoke about already several times in the meeting about what the colleagues called ECAS account. We have a new terminology, and since a while we call them EU login accounts, but it is the same. So whether you hear ECAS or EU login is actually the same. EU login is the central system giving access to all the Commission IT systems. So that means once you have an EU login, you have theoretically at least the possibility to access many of our systems. And of course, anybody in the world can create an EU login account, and this takes just 1 minute. What you have to do is click on the register button, enter your name and your email address, and then you click on a link and you will receive an email to confirm this account and to set your password. We also consider this as the single sign-on possibility, meaning there is one EU login account related to just one email address, and the terms of reference stipulate that an EU login account has to be assigned to one person. So please don't share your login and password. So I just mentioned login and password. This is indeed the first step. And for the moment, this is enough to access all your assets. And in particular, we speak about your expert profile. But this will change soon, because you know that the threats on the cybersecurity are increasing more and more. And our cybersecurity experts tell us that this simple login and password method for accessing is not secure anymore. And therefore, we will soon switch to an obligatory so-called two-factor authentication, meaning you need something more than just the login and password. And this will be applicable to many of our roles that have access to assets in the portal, people managing grants, people submitting proposals, but also to you as potential or already existing experts. So whether you have already an expert profile and an EU login or not, this will come to you as a new obligation very soon. The good thing is that there are several options to activate this second factor. And I should maybe explain that this two-factor authentication is always something that you know, meaning the password that is, so to say, the first level of security, and that everybody who has an EU login. And as a second factor, something that you own, meaning a device or something similar. And the 4 options for this second factor, for the device that you might own, are on this slide. So it can be either your smartphone or your tablet, where you have to install an app, which is called the EU Login app. It can be a special USB key that you have to buy and that you put into your computer, and that will then serve as the second factor when you log into our systems. As an alternative to this special USB key, many modern computers and notebooks also now have already a little chip integrated, which is called a trusted platform. And depending on the operating system you use, you can make use of this trusted platform, meaning that you don't need a second physical device, but in a certain sense, the second physical device is already integrated in your computer. The third option is many member states have the so-called eID, meaning your national ID card has a little chip that can provide the digital identification of you as a person. So currently it's 21 member states. And if you have such a national ID card and you know how to use it in your national context, for instance, for your tax declaration or whatever, then you can also use this as the second factor for accessing our systems. And the last possibility is the passkey that you can install on your mobile device or on your computer. For all this, we have extended guidance available on our portal, and on all these 4 methods, we also have short videos explaining exactly how you do it. Therefore, I will not dwell in this short presentation on the details here. It's just an illustration of what you have to do to activate your second factor. So once you have an EU login account, you can access our funding and tenders portal. You see a drop-down list related to your avatar, which has a menu item, My Account. And from there, you start by activating your second factor. This slide is just illustrating which of the countries have already this national ID card if you want to use this possibility for the second factor. For the special USB key, I said this is something you have to buy. It's not a normal USB stick that you find everywhere. It is a special security key that some providers will sell you. I am told it costs in the order of 50 euros. And so if you don't want to use your smartphone or your trusted platform on your computer, you can go for this alternative. Again, a video is available to explain the details. And then on the trusted platform, I already mentioned what it is, so I will also not go in further details here. Again, a video is available to explain the details. And the same for the passkey on your device. This is a bit more tricky, and it depends also a bit on the operating system you use. It is available for Microsoft and for Apple, but also for Linux operating system. But here you need to dig a bit deeper in the software of your computer, and maybe you would need advice from one of your IT experts. One important question, of course, what happens if you lose your second factor? Here in the portal, we provide the possibility, once you activate your second factor, to have 3 security questions replied. And if you lose or your second factor is stolen, you can go back and reset your account to single factor by replying to these three secret questions. Of course, this requires that you don't forget them, so you should store them in a safe place for the case that you lose your second factor. And another important recommendation is that when you do this, when you activate your second factor, think maybe about registering immediately 2 different second factors, so that if you lose one of them, you still have the other one. So for instance, if your preferred method is the trusted platform, the chip on your own computer, you might still register your mobile phone and install the EU login app or whatever other method you would prefer. And then if one of them is lost, you still have the possibility with the other one. Here a question that might be in particular pertinent for experts, because we have said in what we explained before that experts work for us in the first instance in their personal capacity. So many experts prefer not to use their professional email address linked to their employer for the work as an expert, but to use rather their private or another email. And then you have two email addresses. And I said at the very beginning, a given EU login account can only be linked to one email address. So you would then possibly have two different EU login accounts with two different email addresses. In this case, unfortunately, there is only one method left that you can use for the second factor if you don't want to use two different, completely different sets of devices. In this case, the recommendation is to use the trusted platform method. That means the little chip that is on your computer. The trusted platform, you can link to different EU login accounts. You cannot do this, for instance, with the EU login app on your smartphone. This the system does not allow. And with this, I already finished my short teaser, how I would like to call it. As I said, I did not want to go into the details here. We have a dedicated webinar with more explanations on all of this, and also with a long session of questions and answers that was recorded and that is still available behind the link that is shown here on this slide. And we also have extended guidance on our IT how-to, where you have screenshots and a lot of explanation on all the different options that I just presented. And with this, I already finish, and maybe there are a few Slido questions.
Yes, we can open two Slido questions, but I didn't see any. Yeah. So
okay.
On the two-factor authentication. Yeah. No, I didn't spot any.
Okay.
But
very good.
Yeah. So. But as you said, Peter, I think the recorded event includes also a very long question and answer session. So information
Absolutely.
is there. So with this, we finish. Thank you very much for attending this event. We hope it was useful. And yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye.